This road looks kind of dead. Should we do a burnout? Let's do a burnout. Let's do a skid. I mean, it's not really a skid, is it? But it does burn out really easily. Third gear burnout. Yeah, these tyres aren't going to last long. Oh, we've got smoke in the car. Good. It's just like a drift day. There's a lot of smoke behind us. It's just like a drift day. So here we are with a Supra. Finished all the paperwork and everything, just driven a few miles. Give you my first impressions, I guess, and we'll have a proper look around it. I mean, I'm sure you've seen tons of Supra videos by now, but I think, personally, it's a really good looking car. But obviously everyone's got their own opinions on that. But if we hop inside, I'll talk you through some stuff. As you can see, we've got traction control off. Might have done a burnout already, with only 30 miles on the clock. Yeah, it does good burnouts. That is one thing I'll say for it. The rest of the interior, I'm sure you've probably seen, but it's very BMW. It's pretty nice though. I mean, people complain about the interior being BMW, but if there's one company I would want an interior off, it's probably BMW or Audi, so I don't think it's a bad thing. It's pretty nice, like it's got a little contrast stitching all over the place, like the seats are decent. There's a fair bit of room back there. I don't think this moves at all though, so like you haven't got any sort of storage space around here other than cup holders. You've actually got a wireless charging thing down here though, which is pretty cool. If you can see that, you can put your phone in there and it'll wirelessly charge, which is good because the normal charger on my phone is broken and I can only charge it through wireless charging, so it's good for me. But yeah, otherwise pretty standard stuff. I'm not super keen on the digital display, like for the rev count and everything, but I'm sure I'll get used to it. You've got these little bars at the left and right for fuel and for coolant. I do wish it had an oil temperature gauge. You might notice when I press the throttle, you do hear some pops and bangs. Now I don't know about you, but I think the actual like exhaust note is pretty bland. The little pops and bangs are cool, I like that. But I'll definitely be making a decap pipe for it and getting it mapped and stuff. We'll go through the mods at some point in another video maybe, or at the end of this one. But yeah, I'll definitely be getting a decap pipe for it, and then we'll see how it sounds after that. And then once that's done, if it still doesn't sound incredible, I'll probably chop out the silencer at the back. I don't know if you can see, but there's a silencer under there, pretty big one. I'll probably chop that out and see what it sounds like, just make my own bit of pipe to go in there. The decap pipe as well, I'll probably make myself. It's basically just an empty bit of pipe with a port on for the O2 sensor and a V-band flange at one end, so I can make that myself pretty easily, I think. But yeah, let's go do some burnouts.
A few moments later.
Good old UK weather. I think we'll pick this up tomorrow when it's hopefully not torrential rain. Alright, so it's now the next day. It's not raining today, luckily. It was earlier, but it's nice and sunny now. We're at the workshop. This place is still an absolute mess, I know, ignore all that. I'll explain what's going on with these two cars in a minute. But what we're here for today is this. This turned up yesterday. I literally picked the car up yesterday. When I got home, these were waiting for me. So big thank you to Torken, as always, for supplying those really quickly. I literally messaged the guy like 2 days ago saying, can you get hold of any parts for the Supra? And then the next day, these turned up. So big thank you to them. Good start. So yeah, this is what we've got. We've got some springs, which are obviously going to lower the Supra, but unlike just regular lowering springs, they are adjustable, so you can adjust the height. Now you might think, why don't you just get coilovers if you want to, have full ride height adjustability and all that stuff. The only option for coilovers at the moment for Supra is KW V3 coilovers, and there's like a 6-week wait to get hold of them. And also I had KWs on a previous car and I wasn't that keen on them, to be honest, for a few reasons. Yeah, because that was the only option for the Supra, we've gone for these instead. So these are HKS They've got some fancy name like Hypermax or something, but at the end of the day, they're springs that lower the car. So we're going to put those on in the next couple of days. I'm not actually doing that today, but I just thought I would get them here and make sure everything's all good. Look rather swish. Uneventful, really, wasn't it? I mean, should I unwrap it more? Is that what people do in unboxing videos? I don't know. We need to like take it fully out. There we go. Now it's unboxed. Look at that. It says Hypermax Touring HKS Japan. You know it's good if it says Japan on it. That's the general rule in drifting, which is a fucking stupid rule, but that's the general rule in drifting. Is it's cool if it's from Japan, and it is. So we're winning. Okay, so now that fun activity is out of the way, I'll give you a quick run through what's going on with these two cars, like I mentioned, and then we'll go drive the Supra, and I'll give you some like first impressions of it, I guess, and we'll probably do some more burnouts as well. So yeah, real quick, this is just for anyone who's like new to the channel. This is my competition car that I compete in the British Drift Championship with. It's a 350Z, as you can see. It's twin turbo, still on the VQ standard engine. I say standard engine. It's built, obviously, it's got forged rods and pistons and all that stuff. It's about 600 brake-ish, twin turbo, like I say, made it all myself. There's tons of videos on this channel of me making everything, all the exhaust manifolds, all the pipework, the intercooler, all that stuff. Loads of videos. I'll leave a link in the description to the playlist that contains that whole build. Like I say, built engine, which was done by these guys, not these guys, these guys, who also mapped it as well. So yeah, that's a competition car, and it's good. It does good skids. So, the thing is with having that car that's like pretty highly strung, you know, like I say 600 brake, and like we have a few overheating issues. It's not stopped me from driving it yet, but I feel like it's kind of like on the limit of being okay, that car. So the idea with this one, which as you can see I'm painting the roll cage at the moment, and the roll cage just got done. And the idea with buying this, the 370, was basically just to have a practice car. That I know it sounds weird because like it's newer and like in theory more expensive than that, but the amount of money I've sunk into that, like, is way more expensive than this. But yeah, so this is just to take to practice days so that I don't have to use the competition car and batter that and risk damaging it and like wearing on the parts and stuff, when I can just use this. Like if I just want to go do a practice day, I can just go and drift in this. And also just to kind of get back to just some fun, relatively low powered NA skids. Like as much as I love the twin turbo build on that, it's mental, I love it. It'd still be fun to have the option to do, you know, just relatively low speed, low power skids. As you can see, I'm busy doing stuff at the moment with it. Just had some bits powder coated because they were all rusty and horrible. But yeah, that's kind of the idea. That's going to be an NA fun car, that's competition car, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The reason I'm not actually driving this yet is because after I took the gearbox and replaced the slave cylinder started leaking again, so now I've got to take all the gearbox off again, which is a bit of a fuck about. So I'm going to finish off painting the roll cage, then eventually at some point get around to taking the whole gearbox off and replacing the slave cylinder again and figuring out why it's leaking. But yeah, that's the story with those two. There's a few little wiring issues that I need to sort out on this before the next round of BDC, which is in a week, but other than that, it's all good. So yeah, now you know, let's go drive this thing. Okay, I didn't get far before it started absolutely pouring down with rain again. I don't know if you can see or hear, but it's terrible weather. I've driven it a bit in the dry. I've done 157 miles so far. So I'll give you my first impressions. I'm going to try and split this into a few sections. We'll do like first impressions and like how it drives and how it feels and everything. And then I'll explain why I traded the Cayman in for it. And then we'll get on to future plans, modifications, all that stuff. So let's go. Like I say, it's soaking wet. I've got traction control off because I'm not a vagina. We're in sport mode, so it'll probably slide around a bit, hopefully. I've already driven it a little bit in the wet, and like I say, a bit in the dry. And yeah, it's kind of weird when it comes to sliding around. It's really fucking bumpy as well, this road, you can probably tell. But yeah, I mean, it'll slide pretty easily if you give it a bootful in second when it's soaking wet, but in the dry it doesn't really want to do that at all. Like it feels like quite a grippy car, and the front end has got some weirdness which I'll get into, but I just want to set the kind of the tone for the review from the start, because I always end up just talking about the negative things, and people think that I hate the car or whatever, and it's like, no, I actually really like that car. I was just pointing out a few flaws. Like I don't believe in being sort of, you know, like having rose-tinted glasses. I want to just be objective, you know. I don't care if it's my car. If I've spent a lot of money on it, I'm still going to be objective. I'm still going to point out the bad things. So yeah, I do tend to focus on those quite a bit. But just know from the start that I like the car. I am glad I got it. Obviously, I've only done, like I say, 100 miles in it. Only had it for a couple of days, so this isn't going to be a full-on review and like a full-on like should I have bought it kind of thing. More just like my first impressions. First thing I want to talk about is the steering. Now, it's kind of probably my main gripe, my main problem with this car at the moment is the steering. It's just a little bit unintuitive is the best word I can think of. Like right there, and I know this won't have come across on camera at all, but right there we're going around a very gradual bend. Okay, we're doing 60 mile an hour, going around a very gradual bend, and I go to turn the wheel a tiny bit to go around the gradual turn, and it turned a lot more than I was expecting. Again, I know it won't come across on camera, but like it sort of felt like it jerked the car a bit, and like the steering is just really quick sometimes. Like at low speed doesn't seem to be, like I don't notice any weirdness, but as soon as I'm going around like a fun country road that I've done 100,000 times in other cars, maybe a slight exaggeration, like I go to turn around a gentle corner and it's like as if I've turned the wheel like 90 degrees. That's again an exaggeration, but yeah, it's really just fast sometimes. Like it seems very hard to be smooth with it, that's the thing. But again, not at normal speeds like just around town or whatever, or even just pottering along at the speed limit, although we were then just doing the speed limit. Yeah, it's kind of normal, but then just sometimes you go to turn in and it's just really aggressive, which kind of brings me on to the other thing about the steering that I'm finding is weird, is that when you this is really hard to explain. When you turn in, obviously I've done a lot of drifting stuff, so I know what a car feels like when it's sliding or when it's about to slide, that kind of thing. And like there's a certain feeling of like a lot of the time the front end starts to just go a little bit and then it'll transition into oversteer. This almost always feels like it's about to do that, but it's not. It's really hard to explain. Like you turn in, especially in the wet, you turn in and it feels like you're about to start understeering because just the resistance in the steering wheel just goes a little bit light, I guess, and then nothing really happens. Like it doesn't understeer and you can actually turn more and it'll just keep turning. So it's really odd. I need to get it on track and like have a proper play around with it. That's kind of what I'm doing today in the last couple of days, just playing around, trying to figure things out. But obviously the best place to do that is the track. So I'll be doing a track day next weekend in it, and I'll do a video from that. And then I'll get a proper sort of feel of what the car's actually like. But for now, it just feels a little bit unpredictable and like doesn't sort of communicate. Yeah, unpredictable isn't the right word. It just doesn't communicate what it's doing that well with the front end and like the steering feel, which is odd. But it's fucking fast when you put your foot down, which we'll get onto in a minute. But yeah, it's really fast. So yeah, steering is definitely a gripe. Too quick and just a little bit unintuitive when it feels like it might slide and then it doesn't. Other driving things, the ride quality. This road that I'm going down now is really bumpy, so it probably looks like I'm getting thrown around all over the place, because I did film some stuff yesterday and I noticed that it just looks like I'm getting thrown around everywhere, whereas in the car at the time I didn't feel that at all. I mean, this road's really bad. But yeah, I think it doesn't help. A lot of the roads around here are pretty bumpy and horrible. But in the car, yeah, it doesn't feel like a bad, harsh ride or anything. I don't feel like I'm moving around a lot. It just, for some reason on camera, looks like you are. So bear that in mind. If you're watching this thinking, God, that car looks horrific, like in terms of ride quality, it's really not. I mean, we've got everything in sport now. The dampers are adjustable. They do have like the magnetic fluid or whatever it is in it. That, oh, that's a big puddle. That lets the dampers like stiffen up by just pressing a button. So it does have that. This road is fucking horrible. Why have I come down here? So yeah, this is in sport mode. I don't notice a massive difference between sport and non-sport mode in terms of suspension and all that stuff. But we've got everything in sport mode anyway. So yeah, we'll go on to, I guess, the power and the exciting bit, the fun bit, the acceleration. I've got to say, I'm really impressed with how fast the turbo spools up and how quick the throttle response is. Like, compared to older cars, not even, I don't mean like 10, 15, 20 years ago, I mean like just a few years ago when I got a Seat Leon Cupra. Conscious not every country has those, so I'll flash up a picture of what that is. That was like the first, one of the first turbo cars I had. But that's only like, we're only going back like 6-7 years. And yeah, the turbo in that, there was a pretty noticeable delay. Like you put your foot down, it was like waiting, waiting. Now we're going. Like, it was quite gradual and it took quite a while. Whereas in this, I don't know if I want to just floor it in a low gear when it's this wet, and these roads are so bumpy. But when we get on a slightly straight bit, I'll floor it. Well, we're in 4th gear, right? And we're at 3,000 RPM. Now, if I just floor the throttle now we're already off. Like, it's already pushing me back in my seat. So, yeah, it's really impressive how far turbo technology, and I know it's not just the turbo, it's the design of everything around it, how far it's come, and how this almost feels NA. Like, you can put your foot down at pretty much any RPM in any gear, and it just pulls, and it really throws you back in the seat as well. Like, in 3rd gear, floor it in 3rd, it like literally pushes me back in the seat, and it feels way faster than the power figures would have you believe. Like, what was it supposed to be 330 brake, and I know people have dynoed them and got a bit more than that, even stock, but it still feels way more than the figures that I've seen from people's dynos would suggest, which I guess comes down to the torque rather than the horsepower, but even so, it's impressive. It's definitely a fun car in terms of when you just put your foot down, it's fun. And we've got a tight corner here, so let's see if it's going to do this weird thing with the steering when I turn in and it decides it wants to try and like understeer a bit. No, but it will oversteer when you floor it on the way out, which is nice. That's what we want. It is what we want. But that's mainly because it's soaking wet. When I was trying to do that sort of stuff in the dry, it just wants to grip for the most part. God, this fucking road is equally terrible with puddles everywhere. This is, oh my god, this is the worst, the worst weather and the worst roads. I don't know if you can hear all these massive puddles that I'm hitting. The worst weather and the worst roads to be doing this on. But I didn't want to wait like a week until we have a nice day, because, you know, I've posted loads of stuff on Instagram and stuff already about this car. I just wanted to kind of get my raw first impressions out there. Fucking Jesus, I need to find some better roads. Fucking hell. So, what was I saying? I've got distracted by just trying to survive on this road. Fuck me. This is what I'm saying about the steering, right? In a normal car, this wouldn't be pleasant. I mean, I'm kind of enjoying it, but this wouldn't be a pleasant road to drive down, but you know, there's a car coming, we'll be sensible. Yeah, this wouldn't be pleasant, but in this, it's just getting dragged around all over the place. Like, I don't know if you can see the amount of steering input I'm having to do just to stay on the road. Now, granted, this is terrible weather, like I say. There's a lot of standing water around. But I've driven other cars in this weather, and there's a bit of a fucking river here. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I've driven other cars in this sort of weather and not had that same experience. And I'd say in the dry, it was similar. It was every little bump, every little camber in the road, it was dragging it around. So yeah, anyway, let's get back to performance stuff, I guess. Well, I've kind of said what I need to say, really. It's rapid. And once it's been mapped and, you've done a few upgrades and stuff, people are getting like 100 horsepower out of it just from a downpipe and a map. I say downpipe, I mean like a decat downpipe. So yeah, it's going to be rapid after that. Like, I'm looking forward to that. Which I guess brings me naturally on to like the future plans and the mods and stuff. No, this road's closed. This drive is not going to plan, is it? Alright, I figured out where I'm going now. Hopefully away from all these fucking puddles. But no, everywhere's going to be puddly as fuck. So yeah, the future plans and stuff, we'll get onto why I traded the Cayman in afterwards. I guess that was supposed to be the next section, but we'll do that at the end. So yeah, getting back on topic, future plans for this car. I will be lowering it, as you've seen, because the adjustable springs. I'll be putting different wheels on it, but like that sort of stuff I don't count as like, I mean, they are technically mods, but I definitely don't count wheels as a mod, but the springs I guess are a mod, but that's not a build, just lowering a car and putting wheels on it, despite what half the internet seems to think. That's not a build. So I don't really count that stuff. The interesting stuff to me is like if I start, upgrading the turbo, changing the downpipe and stuff like that, getting it mapped, that's the interesting stuff. So I will be doing the kind of default path with this car, which is stick a decat downpipe on it, which, like I said, I'll make myself, and then get it mapped, and you basically get an extra 100 horsepower for that, which is a decent amount to gain from just that. And then after that, I'll probably make some other exhaust bits, just so we can get it sounding nice, like I mentioned earlier. Then it'll probably be starting to look at upgrading the turbo. Now these engines, you're probably all familiar with it, but these engines have got an internal like exhaust manifold in the head, which is really weird, but they have. So instead of having 6 ports coming out of the side of the engine that all your exhaust ports are flowing out of, you just have 2, because the exhaust manifold is actually in the head, and then it just merges together into 2 that come out of the engine, and then the turbo just bolts straight up to those 2. So I'm assuming it's a twin scroll turbo because of that, but I haven't actually checked. But it's like, as far as I can see, it's some sort of bespoke turbo flange, so you can't just stick any turbo on there. You'd have to make your own, I want to say exhaust manifold, but it's technically not the exhaust manifold, I don't know, whatever it is. You'd have to make your own version of that to then have whatever turbo flange you wanted on it. So I might do that, and then we can stick some big Garrett turbo on it or something, I don't know. Those plans are all going to be a little bit in the future. I'm not going to say like, you know, months and years away or whatever. Well, it will be months, I guess, but not forever away, but they're not going to be right now. The first things will just be lowering it, doing the decat stuff. I want to do the decat and the map ASAP, but the turbo stuff will be kind of future plans. Make it a bit more mad. I kind of do want to just make it a bit mental. Just, you know, have something stupid like a screamer pipe sticking out the bonnet or something, which people are probably cringing at the idea of like cutting up the bonnet on this car, but I don't know, it's just an idea. I'm not saying I'm definitely going to do that, but I do for some reason just want it to be a bit mad. One thing I just remembered I didn't mention in the last sort of section, this steering again is really catching me out. One thing I just remembered I didn't mention is the exhaust sound, and the kind of lack of, I mean there is a sound, I don't know if you can hear it, there is some sound, but I don't know what it is. It seems quite artificial and fake to me. It doesn't really sound like an engine or an exhaust, so I don't know what it is. And BMW do have a history of playing like a synthesized engine sound through the speakers, so this probably does that. So I can't remember what the last thing I said was. I got distracted again. Let's get to why I traded the Cayman in and how this differs from the M4 that I said I didn't really like. Well, it's not that I didn't like it, it's just that I didn't think it was very sporty or sort of fun, really. It was a good all-round car. Like, it went fast and it was practical and you could fit comfortably 4 people in it and a bit of luggage, and it looked nice and it had a nice interior and all that stuff. It was a good all-round car, but it just wasn't particularly sporty. And I'm not going to dwell on that too much because I did a whole video on that of why I traded it in for the Cayman. So why did I get rid of the Cayman with its fun manual gearbox and the fact that you could thrash it and still be under the speed limit and be having fun? Why did I get rid of that for this, which is basically a BMW with an auto gearbox? So obviously there's a few reasons. Let's just get the obvious one out of the way. This is a shiny new toy. Like, let's not kid ourselves. People like to spend money on shiny new stuff, and I am no different. I'm not going to pretend I am. All right, this, like, especially with it being a brand new car, you know, that no one has kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, the other day, or yesterday, when I went to fill it up at the petrol station for the first time, 5 separate people came and talked to me about the car. Like, a few people at the pumps, a few people when I was paying, a few people when I was grabbing some food. Like, it gets a lot of attention, which I'm not normally someone who wants a lot of attention. Like, you know, I didn't get it in bright yellow or anything, do you know what I mean? And when I had the R8, I kind of didn't like the fact that it felt like everyone was looking at it when you're just driving it around. Now, I know some of you are thinking, no one cares about an R8, no one looks at it, get over yourself. If you live in London or whatever, yeah, I'm sure you're right. In Grimsby, you don't see, like, any supercars, like, ever. Like, I can count on one hand the amount of supercars I see in, like, a year. I don't really want attention, but it is nice to have something new and something that, you know, people haven't seen before. And this car does look mad when you just see it in normal situations, like at petrol pumps and in a car park and whatever. It's, you know, it's completely different to when it's just on pictures and videos and stuff on a track and whatever. When you see it just in a normal situation, it looks pretty like wild compared to most of the stuff on the road. So yeah, I'm enjoying that. That is one reason why I traded the Cayman in. Another reason is aftermarket support. Obviously, I like modifying cars. I like working on stuff. The Cayman has pretty much 0 aftermarket support. You know, people don't turbo them. They don't do anything with them. And I said I might, you know, do that. I might turbo mine because people don't do it. But I looked into it and it's just like, you just can't find any information out about anything to do with the engines or just anything you would need to know before you start building a turbo kit for it. So it was just like, it would be possible, I'm sure, if I spoke to enough people and, you know, dealt with enough companies that have worked with Porsches, but yeah, it's a pretty big undertaking to do something like that. Whereas this, people are already upgrading the turbos on them, people are already mapping them, and they've literally been out like less than a couple of months. And there's already parts available from. There's not a lot of parts yet, I'll be honest. I was hoping there'd be a few more parts, like basic stuff, like coilovers and brake pads and stuff. There's not a lot yet, but I'm sure it will come. There's a lot of aftermarket companies already taken interest in the car and said that they're working on stuff, so it will come. And then there's also the fact that when I test drove this, it didn't suffer from the same problem as the M4, not to the same extent anyway, of needing to go really fast to feel like you're going fast. Now this isn't quite at the Cayman level of like I say, you can just thrash it and be under the speed limit and still be having fun, but yeah, you can definitely still get in trouble in this fairly easily, just not to the same extent as the M4. So that was one reason when I test drove it, I did notice that. I was like, in the M4, the amount of times I ended up doing stupid speeds just to have a little quick bit of fun, whereas in this you can floor it a bit in lower gears and just feel that fun sense of acceleration. This actually feels like it sort of pulls harder than the M4, which I don't think it can do in reality, but just the way the power's delivered, it feels better. So yeah, there's that. And then I think there was one other reason. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about the auto gearbox. Like I keep saying, I would much prefer a manual, and I am looking into manual converting this, but I think I'm going to wait quite a while and see if they actually bring out an official manual version first before I go hacking this up. So yeah, like the auto gearbox in this is just as good as the dual clutch gearbox in the M4, I would say. Like it's instant when you pull a paddle, it's just straight away, up or down. It just works instantly. It's probably the best auto, like non-dual clutch auto gearbox that I've ever driven. And like I say, as good as the dual clutch autos that I've driven. So for an auto, it's good, but I would still much rather have a manual. Still have the control of being able to put the clutch in whenever you want, being able to clutch kick if you want, being able to like manually change gears and rev match and heel and toe. Just any day, I would much rather have that. And this car would be, I'm not going to say perfect, because I don't think any car is perfect, and I've already mentioned a few little gripes, but this car would be even better with a manual gearbox. So hopefully one day they'll bring that out. But yeah, speaking of little random gripes and things, a couple of weird things in the interior. There's nothing major, none of this is major, just tiny little oddities that I've noticed. The start-stop button, the one that you have to press to turn the car on and turn the car off every time, is completely hidden behind the steering wheel. Like I cannot see it at all right now. Literally can't see it. I have to like move my head all the way over to here to be able to see it, to then press it. Which sounds like a tiny thing, but every time you get in the car having to look for something is kind of annoying. Like you shouldn't really have to do that. I don't know why they didn't just... If they'd literally moved it an inch to the left, it would be fine. There's an empty space there. So yeah, I'm not sure on that. But the other thing is it's not super obvious when you're in sport mode. Like you would have thought, especially with it being like a digital dash, it would kind of like light up red or something, I don't know, something cheesy like that. But you just literally get a little small grey bit of text that says sport in between about 5 other bits of text. So yeah, it's not super obvious. But yeah, these are just tiny things. Like I said before, I would like an oil temperature gauge in a sporty car. I think it's stupid to not have an oil temperature gauge, but most cars unfortunately fall into that problem. The Cayman did have one, so that was a good thing about the Cayman. Should have just kept the Cayman, shouldn't I? I'm joking. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I'm sure there's stuff I've forgotten, but I want to try and keep this relatively brief. I know we're way past that point, but I did actually try and film some stuff earlier and I just rambled on for way too long. And I know what you're thinking. You've already done that. Trust me, you should have seen the other version of this. So yeah, that's it. It's a good car. I'm enjoying it so far. There'll be videos very soon of us doing some mods to it. Mainly the springs and the exhaust stuff, and then getting it mapped. And yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. So I think that will do for this video. Next video will probably be either the springs or the next round of BDC, because that is in a week. So yeah, whichever one of those comes up next, I will see you there.